Hello students, good evening. Welcome to Bajirao Ias Academy interview guidance program. So today we are starting this session with a very important topic, that is a recently introduced bill with respect to Uniform Civil Code in the state of Uttarakhand. So Uniform Civil Code is part of directive principles of state policy under Article 44 of the Indian Constitution. So in fact, there were various judgments from the Supreme Court itself for the implementation of Uniform Civil Code, whether it is in the Shah Bano judgment or even in the Minerva Mills judgment, that the Supreme Court has given directions to the government to implement Uniform Civil Code across the country. So why the Uniform Civil Code in news? Recently, the Uttarakhand state government has introduced or tabled a Uniform Civil Code bill, otherwise called as UCC Bill 2024 in the state legislative assembly. Now, apart from Goa now is the only state in India which have the Uniform Civil Code. In fact, Supreme Court in one of its judgment has said that other states should emulate the Goa way of adopting Uniform Civil Code. Now, Uttarakhand government has tabled the UCC Bill 2024 in the State Legislative Assembly, and because of this specific reason, Uniform Civil Code is in news. Now, in this context, we will try and understand what is Uniform Civil Code and what are its basic objectives, why the Constitution under Article 44 talks about the Uniform Civil Code. Now here, Uniform Civil Code actually means that it wanted to create a uniform set of laws. Now we all know that India is a diverse country, so there are people from different religions are living here. So therefore, it is very important that we need to consolidate all those different laws which are meant for different religions. For example, when we talk about the Muslims, so they have their own Shariat law. Okay, so in this context, the Muslim woman or women in several other communities are being deprived of their rights. So therefore, Uniform Civil Code usually provide a set of laws and which will replace the existing distinct personal laws of every religion pertaining to few subjects such as marriage, divorce, adoption and inheritance. Okay, so Uniform Civil Code usually provides a common set of laws or uniform laws with respect to subject matters such as marriage, divorce, adoption and inheritance of the property. Now, what is the aim of introducing Uniform Civil Code? Now, why the state governments and even center has showing greater interest in implementing Uniform Civil Code? It is because it wanted to replace the existing diverse personal laws. So in fact, there were different communities, even for the tribals, they have their own customs. So therefore, it wanted to replace the existing diverse personal laws. So these diverse personal laws are very often based on the religious affiliations of the people. So since these laws were not codified and these laws were diverse in nature, very often different groups of different sections within those religious groups were often deprived of their rights, their fundamental rights. So because of this reason, Uniform Civil Code usually emphasizes on creation of a uniform set of laws. So as I have already told you, Article 44 of the Indian Constitution talks about the Uniform Civil Code. Okay, so this is part of the directive principles of state policy as part of directive principles of state policy were mentioned in part 4 of the Indian Constitution. Okay, so they were mentioned in the part 4 of the Indian Constitution, directive principles of state policy. So apart from that, what Article 44 specifically talks about? Okay, so what Article 44 says? So Article 44 mandates that the state shall endeavor to secure all its citizens, a uniform civil code, okay, throughout the territory of India. So this is what the state has mandated. This is what Article 44 has mandated with respect to Uniform Civil Code, and it has directed the state shall endeavor to secure to all its citizens Uniform Civil Code throughout the territory of India. So as of now, this directive principle is not followed. So uniform civil code has not implemented across the country as of now. However, there were attempts from few states. For example, on the lines of Uttarakhand, even Madhya Pradesh has also started introducing or codifying these multiple or diverse laws. So in fact, Supreme Court in Minerva Mills versus Union of India judgment 1980s, the Supreme Court held that, or Supreme Court ruled that striking a balance between fundamental rights and directive principles of state policy was actually a basic feature of the Indian constitution. So this effectively means that the parliament can strike a balance between fundamental rights and the directive principles of state policy without undermining one another. So this is what is what is Supreme Court held in the Minerva Mills judgment of 1980s. So similar to Minerva Mills judgment, there was also a Shah Bano Begum case 1985. Now in this particular judgment is very important for with respect to the Uniform Civil Code. Why? Because in this Shah Bano Begum case of 1985, the Supreme Court has opined that it is a matter of great regret, or it is a matter of regret, that the Article 44, which mandates that the state should endeavor to implement uniform civil code across India, has remained a dead letter, or it has not implemented. And Supreme Court in the very same judgment, that is Shah Bano Begum case of 1985, has called for the implementation of uniform civil code across the country. Now, if you look at the states which have already implemented the Uniform Civil Code, Goa is the only state which has implemented the Uniform Civil Code in India, regardless of religion, gender, or any other caste related distinctions. So however, the Goa has inherited this Uniform Civil Code from the Portuguese Civil Code of 1867. So please remember here, Goa is earlier under the control of Portuguese. So because of this reason, Goa has inherited the Uniform Civil Code from the Portuguese Civil Code of 1867. So even after joined India under the Union in 1961. Okay. Now in this context, the Supreme Court in Jose Paulo versus Coutinho case in the year 2019. So the court in fact hailed the Goa model of Uniform Civil Code. As I have already told you that the Goa has adopted the Uniform Civil Code, and in this particular Jose Paulo versus Jose Paulo Coutinho case, the Supreme Court hailed Goa because it is a shining example of adoption of the Uniform Civil Code, and Uniform Civil Code is applicable to all irrespective of their religion, caste, or any other distinction. So therefore, it has protected certain limited rights and urged for the pan-India implementation of the Uniform Civil Code. So Uniform Civil Code implementation across the country. So this is what the Supreme Court has said. Now in the Constituent Assembly, the chairman of the drafting committee, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, what was his opinion with respect to the Uniform Civil Code? So Dr. B.R. Ambedkar said that although Uniform Civil Code was desirable, he opined that the Uniform Civil Code was desirable, but it should purely remain voluntary. The state should not force Uniform Civil Code on the citizens. Rather, it should purely remain a voluntary during the initial stages. Okay, so he even stated that since the provision was merely a recommendatory, because it was mentioned as part of the directive principles of state policy, under Article 44. So hence it is just a recommendatory in nature, and it should not be imposed on all citizens. Okay, so it should not be imposed on all citizens. Rather, whenever we are bringing in Uniform Civil Code, that should be based on consulting all the stakeholders with respect to the pros and cons of implementation of this Uniform Civil Code, because we need to talk about the rights of those people who are deprived of their rights, and we need to talk about the people who are impacted by the implementation of the Uniform Civil Code as well. So after that, we need to talk about the recently introduced Uttarakhand Uniform Civil Code. Now, what exactly is the Uniform Civil Code of Uttarakhand? So recently, Uttarakhand state government has appointed a committee with respect to the Uniform Civil Code. So this committee was led by the retired Supreme Court Judge Justice Ranjana Prakash Desai. So therefore, this particular committee, which has recently appointed by the Uttarakhand government, will examine the ways, and it will also submit the draft for the implementation of the Uniform Civil Code. Now, how Uniform Civil Code will be implemented across the state will be examined by this particular committee headed by the retired Supreme Court Judge Justice Ranjana Prakash Desai. Now, what is the objective of appointing this committee? Why the state government has appointed this committee? It is to establish a legal structure for the Uniform Civil Code. So when it has established a legal structure, that will help in ensuring the consistency in the marriage laws or any other marriage related matters, and diverse that particularly with respect to protecting the rights of women whenever there's a breakdown of marriage, and live-in relationships, land, property and inheritance laws of all citizens irrespective of any caste or religion and even gender. Okay, so irrespective of their religion within the state of Uttarakhand. So this is why Uttarakhand state government has appointed a committee with respect to the Uniform Civil Code. Now, in this context, we will try and understand the key provisions, certain key provisions with respect to Uniform Civil Code, which is implemented, which the Uttarakhand government is going to implement, and what it talks about. Now, tribal communities also have certain customs, certain cultures, and they also have their own unique laws, tribal laws. So therefore, the Uttarakhand state government has mandated that tribal communities will be exempted from the ambit of Uniform Civil Code. Okay, so in Uttarakhand, the tribal communities alone comprises around 2.9% of the total population. So therefore, this Uniform Civil Code implementation bill has exempted this tribal communities for the application of the Uniform Civil Code, because they have their own customs, they have their own laws. Okay, so the governance is usually run based on their own laws. So after that, the Uniform Civil Code has also specifically talked about the live-in relationships. Okay, so this bill has defined live-in relationship as a relationship between man and a woman who cohabit or who live together in a shared household through a relationship in the nature of a marriage. So they never come together through a marriage, but they're living together, but it is in the nature of a marriage. Okay, so it is similar to a marriage, but not a marriage, but they are living together, both man and woman, and this is how the UCC bill has defined the live-in relationship. Now, the Uniform Civil Code Bill of Uttarakhand has also talked about the registration of live-in relationships. So this is to protect the rights and the interests of individuals who come together for this live-in relationship. So therefore, it requires a compulsory registration. So all the live-in relationships in the state of Uttarakhand should be compulsorily registered through a statement of live-in relationship. Okay, so there will be a statement of live-in relationship, and through this statement of live-in relationship, all live-in relationships should be mandatorily registered. So this statement of live-in relationship may be terminated by either of the parties in live-in relationship. So they just submit the statement of termination of this live-in relationship. So by this statement, they can terminate the live-in relationship. Okay, so this is very clear. The bill is very clear with respect to the live-in relationships. So in this context, a woman is also eligible. A woman who is part of the live-in relationship, is also eligible to claim the maintenance. Now, whenever there's a breakdown of marriage, whenever husband gives divorce to his wife, there is a provision for the maintenance. So in this live-in relationship as well, as part of the UCC bill of Uttarakhand, woman is eligible to claim the maintenance in case she is deserted by her live-in partner. Okay, so this ultimately protects the rights of woman who is under the live-in relationship. So after that, the bill has also talked about the legal equality of children. Now, the Uniform Civil Code Bill of Uttarakhand treats adopted, born through the surrogacy, and born through assisted reproductive technology, all of them on equal footing with the biological children. Okay, so this is also with respect to protection of rights of children. Okay, protection of rights of children. So who are those children? So surrogate children and adopted children and children who are actually born through the assisted reproductive technologies, right? So, their rights will be equal with the biological children of the parents. Okay, so this is also protects the rights of children. So after that, the bill has also mandated the legal age of marriage. So legal age of marriage, particularly for women, is in news. So recently there was a debate in parliament that the woman legal age should be increased to 21 years. Okay, so the minimum age of marriage for women should be increased to 21 years. So therefore, to some extent, it helps women educate themselves and also helps increase workforce participation of women. So thereby it is a major tool in achieving gender equality. So this is how the recent increase of marriage age for women has been talked about. So however, the Uttarakhand Uniform Civil Code bill has talked about the legal age for marriage of both men and women. So it has mandated that for women it is 18 years, for men it is 21 years, even for the Muslim men and women. Now in Muslim women, generally marriages are done at a much early age. So therefore it is also protects the rights of Muslim girls, especially Muslim women. So this has been mandated or it is in line with the Hindu Marriage Act of 1955 and Special Marriage Act of 1954. Okay, so this Hindu Marriage Act of 1955 and Special Marriage Act of 1954 have actually mandated the minimum marriage age of both men and women, that is 18 years and 21 years. So however, the Special Marriage Act and Hindu Marriage Act earlier not applicable for the Muslim community. Okay, so their marriage age was usually decided by the Sharia law. Now this Muslim community will also be covered under this legislations as part of the Uniform Civil Code Bill of Uttarakhand. So after that, it has also talked about the registration of marriages as well. So marriages that usually occur after the enactment of the bill. So after the enactment of this Uniform Civil Code, they must be compulsorily registered regardless of any other laws or customs. So it clearly says that the marriages must be compulsorily registered. Okay, so these marriages have to be registered within 60 days from the date of the actual marriage. Okay, so because whenever the marriages are actually registered, we get to know about the ages of both bride and groom. So in a way that helps us reduce the child marriages. Okay, child marriages in India is a major problem. So it also helps in protecting the rights of women, especially when it comes to the divorce or the breakdown of the marriage system. So therefore it eliminates the arbitrary practices of giving divorce to the woman spouse. So no marriage can be dissolved without a court order, or else it can attract an imprisonment of up to 3 years. So this also extends greater protection for the woman. Okay, so no marriage which has been already registered should not be dissolved. However, it should be dissolved only with the court order. However, if it is violated, then it can attract imprisonment of up to 3 years. And this is what the Uniform Civil Code Bill has said with respect to registration of marriage and divorce. So after that, this bill has also talked about the special rights to women to seek the divorce. So women can seek the divorce on certain grounds. For example, the husband has been found guilty of rape or any kind of unnatural sexual offense. So this is more or less similar or coming close to the marital rape. So that was also in news. Okay, so recognition of marital rape as a ground for divorce. And after that, the husband has more than one wife, and in that case also the woman can seek divorce from his or her husband. Okay, from her husband. Okay, so after that, the criminalization grounds in marriage. So firstly, child marriage is criminalized by this bill. Okay, child marriage is crime. Child marriage means a woman who is less than 18 years of age. So this is legal marriage age. And men who is less than 21 years of age. This is also legal marriage age for men. So child marriages will be criminalized. And apart from child marriages, marrying within the prohibited degrees of relationship will also be criminalized. And after that, dissolution of marriage through the modes other than the judicial mode. So dissolution of marriages are only allowed through the judicial mode. No other mode of dissolution is not allowed. Okay, so it is actually punishable with the imprisonment of up to 3 years or fine. Okay, so compelling, abetting or inducing any person to observe any condition for remarrying is also punishable for imprisonment up to 3 years. And after that, it has also prohibited the bigamy or polygamy. Polygamy generally means having more than one wives, and bigamy is having two wives or two spouses. So the bill says that neither party, either man or woman, has the spouse living at the time of their marriage. So thus it has prohibited both bigamy as well as the polygamy in the state. Okay, so this is what the Uniform Civil Code of Uttarakhand has actually mandated in the state. Now in this context, we have to understand certain shortcomings of the bill, certain cons of the bill. What are those cons? So firstly, the non-recognition of key relationship. So recently LGBTQ IA. So this community has fought for the legal right or legal recognition for the same-sex marriages. So however, the Uniform Civil Code that has introduced in the Uttarakhand is largely silent over the recognition of queer relationships. So the bill usually leaves out the members of LGBTQIA plus community. So therefore it missed the opportunity to follow through the recent Supreme Court verdict on the legal recognition to the same-sex marriage. So that is marriage equality verdict of the Supreme Court. So after that, this bill is also not talked about the irretrievable breakdown of marriages. So it has not talked about these marriages. So it has not been included as the ground for divorce. So despite being recognized in several Supreme Court judgments. Okay, so the breakdown of the marriages, they cannot be retrievable again. So they cannot be compelled to live together. So this ground has not been recognized by the Uniform Civil Code as a actual ground for the divorce. So after that, the division of the matrimonial estate. Okay, so whenever the divorce has taken place, whenever the breakdown has taken place, the court has the authority to decide or divide the matrimonial property, which is jointly owned by the male and female spouse. So after that, it is against the privacy. We all know that the Puttaswamy judgment, in Puttaswamy judgment, the Supreme Court has recognized Article 21 Puttaswamy judgment, Supreme Court has recognized Article 21, that is, right to privacy, which is part of Article 21. So therefore, the Uniform Civil Code bill is also in violation of the individual privacy. So several provisions of the Uniform Civil Code have been violating the individual privacy. So the compulsory registration of live-in relationships so is usually infringes on the individual freedom to choose and not to marry. So therefore, the state has been interfering in the private affairs of these consenting citizens. So therefore, it violates right to privacy, which is part of Article 21, right to life and personal liberty. So these are certain shortcomings of the Uniform Civil Code bill of Uttarakhand. So after that, we need to talk about the way forward. So what should be the way forward in this context? Okay, so Supreme Court in several of its judgments has talked about emulating the Goa model of Uniform Civil Code, whether it is in the Shah Bano judgment or any other subsequent judgments. Supreme Court has argued that the Uniform Civil Code must be adopted by more and more states. So now, following the Uttarakhand footsteps, two other states such as Madhya Pradesh and Gujarat have also appointed committees to initiate the formulation of the Uniform Civil Code. So they are also planned to formulate Uniform Civil Code in these respective states as well. So therefore, we all know about the directive principles of state policy. Now, these directive principles of state policy have said that these principles are usually fundamental in the governance of the country. So therefore, in the best interest of the people and protection of their rights and for the welfare of the people, the state has been implementing the Uniform Civil Code. So therefore, it is a fundamental directive principles of state policy are usually fundamental in the governance of the country. So therefore, in this respect, it is the duty of the state to apply these principles in making laws. So however, here one thing we have to understand that multi-stakeholder consultation is necessary whenever the state governments have been implementing the Uniform Civil Code, and the concerns of different communities must be taken into account whenever the state governments have been implementing this Uniform Civil Code. For example, some religions and some tribal groups and their concerns with respect to the Uniform Civil Code, and also analyzing the existing shortcomings within the Uniform Civil Code, all have to be analyzed in a detailed manner before actually implementing this Uniform Civil Code. Okay, so it is in the larger interest of the country, and in fact, Supreme Court has also asking the states to implement or emulate the Goa model of the Uniform Civil Code. Okay, so that's all about the Uniform Civil Code. So if you like our work, please like the video and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you have any suggestions or if you have any doubts with respect to Uniform Civil Code, please comment those doubts in the comment section. Thank you.